I think it's right about time that the media and fans alike give the Miami Heat the credit they actually deserve. Because going throughout this NBA season so far and the NBA playoffs, the Miami Heat have been getting doubted time and time again. In entering these NBA playoffs, each round there's been a different excuse as to why this team could potentially take out the Miami Heat, and every single time that prediction turns out to be nothing but wrong. And right now, with the elevated play of Jimmy Butler and the heightened defensive play of Bam Adebayo, with the emergence of guys like Max Strus, Tyler Hero looking like he's finally about to have that series where he does cement his work in the playoffs so far, and guys like Victor Oladipo finally showing that all-star form that he had a couple years ago, this Miami Heat team looks poised to be one of the best for years to come, and to be honest, looks like a very nice sleeper in these NBA playoffs. So let's talk about it. I don't understand what the people's problem with the Miami Heat is, but for every single round of these NBA playoffs, it seems like there's just something else that goes against us. In the first round, it was Trae Young and him being the best player in the series, and the Miami Heat not having that closer, so when games do get close, they can't really finish them. Well, surprise, surprise, a lot of those games weren't close, so we didn't need the closer. And even for the ones that were close, Jimmy did his job and ended that series. Overall, the Miami Heat again proved why you should not doubt them. The Miami Heat played some immaculate defense on Trae Young and the entire Hawks team in general. Even in a closeout game in Game 5 where the Miami Heat didn't have Kyle Lowry nor Jimmy Butler, Victor Oladipo cemented himself in the rotation as a great player on this team, and the Miami Heat took care of business with relative ease in that game, showing that the Miami Heat not only have a level of depth that a lot of teams don't have, but the elevated play of its players in totality is far higher than a lot of teams in the NBA, and they deserve their respect. But with the next coming round being against the Philadelphia 76ers and what many people, or at least a lot of fans, thought should have been the MVP in Joel Embiid, the world let the Miami Heat know that they probably were going to get dropped out in the second round as a first seed. Now, I know the excuse is there. Joel Embiid was not 100% at most. He was 70% at most with his thumb and his face. I understand that, and I understand that us not having Kyle Lowry is not the same. Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate. While Kyle Lowry is important to this team, he's not as important as Joel Embiid is to Philadelphia. The way the Miami Heat dismantled that team should be noted as is honestly on a level that I had a problem witnessing. The Miami Heat in the first two games of that series completely dismantled them in every single way possible without Joel Embiid. James Harden looked like a shell of himself, as the rest of the series he did. But going back to Philadelphia, it seems like those two games really inflated people's egos, not realizing that Miami Heat, without Philadelphia even playing that great of defense, just had two historically bad shooting nights. And all it took was the Miami Heat getting back to what was their average, or even a little bit less than average, in the next two games for them to close out the series again with relative ease. And a team that supposedly was supposed to give Jimmy Butler trouble, with Matisse Thybulle being his main defender, and Joel Embiid waiting the paint, something that the place where Jimmy scores the most. It seems like a lot of people forgot just how good Jimmy Butler was, and he handled it relative ease. Bam Adebayo flexed his defensive muscle against his team again, putting some trouble on Joel Embiid. And again, while Joel Embiid was not at 100%, Bam Adebayo still played an amazing level of defense on him to make sure that even at 70%, he was almost a non-factor in this series. And while Joel Embiid did get his at times, Bam Adebayo still did an amazing job. And this series was the emergence that we got from somebody like Max Strus, and Tyler finally got his respect this series. Not in that he played well, but in the way the Philadelphia 76ers really honed in on him. Specifically, in the first two games, he dropped 25 points in 18, while those weren't his highest scoring games ever. You can understand that those two games and the way that he was picking them apart, especially with 18 and 7, with showing off his passing in game 2, the Philadelphia 76ers realized that Jimmy Butler can get his, but we can't let this guy get it going, because if they both do, this series is over. So they blitzed them on every single pick and roll, and he really couldn't get anything going, and even then, he still provided us with a certain level of playmaking. I know the defensive and offensive rating numbers of Tyler on and off the floor. You don't have to tell them to me, but those numbers don't tell the entire story. And while I do think the Heat are a better defensive unit without Tyler, as of right now, he's still probably a second best offensive player on this team, and we do need him at times when it is when it's either closing time or throughout the entire game, giving us offense off the bench. And with the Philadelphia 76ers out the way, the next challenge being the Boston Celtics. And right now, it seems like the Boston Celtics are the overwhelming favorites in this series. And while I can understand why people would say that, they've been the best team in the NBA since about January, it's really, really hard to see the contrast in the way people view the Boston Celtics winning versus the Miami Heat. In the first round, both the Brooklyn Nets and the Atlanta Hawks were playing teams. I understand you have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the other side. But from what we've seen, Kyrie Irving, one, had a horribly historically bad series. You can chalk it up to the Boston Celtics defense. But overall, it's just that team not being in rhythm. Kevin Durant was playing way too many minutes at the time, and it seems like that Achilles injury and his age is finally starting to catch up to him. So right now, those two first series, again, two play-in teams between the Hawks and the Brooklyn Nets. One team was praised for it, the other team was chastised for it. And again, in the second round, I understand Giannis is the best player in the NBA. But again, without a Chris Middleton there and the shooters really not really hitting their shots they need to, and Drew Holiday playing underwhelmingly bad, Giannis had to carry a load that was honestly just too big for the amount of players that the Boston Celtics were supposed to throw at them. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? With Joel Embiid down, coming back later in the series, one injured, had to carry a load with players that was underwhelming, James Harden, and players that really, his shooters that weren't hitting their shots. Again, same story, two different teams, two different reactions to two different wins. It's honestly sad how many people are down in the Heat, and I do have the Miami Heat winning this series in either 6 or 7, but I'm gonna stand on 6 because I do think that the Miami Heat can handle them in ways that a lot of teams can't. We match up very well with the Boston Celtics, and I do think that we can definitely be the winners coming out of this series. With that being said, this is no shade to the Boston Celtics. They're a great team, and if they do manage to beat us, it is what it is. But I still have the Miami Heat as the best basketball team in the NBA playoffs left, and I do have them as my favorites in this series, and I do think that they can definitely handle it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I will be live tweeting at the game too when it's happening, so please follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description down below. Like and subscribe to the channel. We've been doing that at all playoffs, almost daily uploads. You can, if you want to. I think these are the two best uploads so far these playoffs. With that being said, this is FRB. That's my time. Also, if the Miami Heat win this series, I need Marcus Smart's Defensive Player of the Year award on Bam Adebayo's locker the next day, because I've yet to see a good argument as to why he has it. Literally, he was, I think, like a plus 22,000 to win it in March, and then as soon as Robert Williams goes down, he just shoots up to winning it. What the hell are we talking about here, bro? It's like they either had some like voter fatigue to stop voting for like Rudy or Giannis, and then when Mikal Bridges won, he got dusted by Luka, and Marcus Smart was just the captain of the best defensive team. Like, come on, bro. It's just sad.